Okay, good afternoon. Hopefully I can get this done right. This is part two of my review of the Norwegian cruise line Baltic Sea cruise that we took over the past 2 weeks. We flew from Frankfurt to Stockholm last Tuesday morning, and we stayed one night in Stockholm, Sweden. We boarded the ship on Wednesday, which was a total fiasco. Those people didn't have their logistics worked out very well. We had a 12:30 appointment. Well, they didn't communicate with the people on the port, so you had 3,000 people all showing up, and we had a 12:30 appointment. We didn't get on the ship till 3. The people who were working there, they were trying to make the best of it, and it's always not a good idea to get angry at the people who are on the front line, because this was a management decision of some part that totally screwed everything up. And the guy came out from the port and he said, "Look, it's the cruise line that did this. If you want to yell at somebody," he said, "yell at me. I can take it, but I didn't have anything to do with it." And I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, we finally got on the ship. We sailed. We sailed overnight to Helsinki, Finland, and of course you have to go ahead an hour because of they're on Eastern European time. Germany and Sweden and Norway and Poland are on Central European time. But nevertheless, Helsinki was an interesting city. We took a guided tour in in Helsinki. It was very interesting how so much that people love boats up there, but that area is frozen. That part of the Baltic is frozen so much. It was still a beautiful city, and the tour guide, there were two of them that couldn't have been better. They showed us a lot of things, told us about the history, showed us some buildings. It's a very beautiful city. A little chilly, but that's to be expected even in June. But talk about long days. Oh my God. It was like, it didn't get dark till probably midnight, and by 4 in the morning it was daylight, because they're even farther north than Germany. Our next port of call was Tallinn, Estonia. That was probably my favorite one. I really, really liked that city. I'm not sure what it was, but it just had this really cool vibe to it. It's hard to believe that a little over 30 years ago they were still living under Soviet communism, and they really have turned the city around. I was impressed by that. Our next stop was Riga in Latvia. That was pretty nice too. I couldn't believe how many people there spoke English, and you could see where some of the buildings were left over from the Cold War, but then they had a bunch of modern buildings mixed in with it. Our next stop after that was Klaipėda in Lithuania. So we didn't go to Vilnius, we went to Klaipėda. And that was a cool little town. We went walking around through there, and it was on I think it was a Sunday. It was really cool to stop and get a beer at one of their cafes. And we had all day long to do what we needed to do there, so we took a tour there too. It's kind of cool. It did rain, and that kind of ruined it, but then after the rain stopped, it was fine. Our next stop after that was Rostock, which is on the Baltic in what used to be East Germany. That used to be under Soviet hegemony up until the Cold War ended in the early 90s. You could definitely see some of the old buildings, but they they had fixed it up. And I forgot to mention to you that before that we went to Gdansk and Gdynia in Poland before we went to Rostock. I'm sorry. That was really cool. There was a whole lot of old Cold War buildings in there. And the thing in Poland that seems to be popular is having the old buildings, from the Soviet era, but then they had this brand new shopping mall that would rival anything in the United States. That was quite fascinating. It's like you had your old and your new next to each other. They didn't take euros there, although our cab driver did, but they have their own, I think it's called the Zloty or something like that. They have their own currency. Finland has their own currency too. Tallinn, Estonia, they use the euro. I believe Latvia used the euro, and Poland had their own currency. But anyway, we sailed to Rostock. You could tell it had some of the East German vibe going on, but it was a cool little city on the waterfront. Then our next stop was Kiel, which is also in the Baltic, but that was in West Germany. And when we when we sailed out of Kalapata, we went past the Russian oblast of Kaliningrad, but I noticed that our ship, I followed them on the satellite tracker, the ship went way, way west from Kalapata and then went south to make it to Gdansk and Gdynia. They didn't want to take any chance and get too close to the Russian Navy, which I can't blame them. The last thing we need is a cruise ship hijacked by Vladimir Putin. But after we left Kiel, our next stop was Copenhagen, Denmark. We stayed there for 2 full days. My wife and I had been there last year. So we went into town and took some pictures and walked around. Beautiful place. And we had been there last year, but it was amazing how tall people are in these Nordic countries. It's so funny. When we left Copenhagen, and they don't take the American dollar or the euro there too, we went to Gothenburg, Sweden, which they use a currency called the SEK. That was really cool. We didn't do much there. The weather was kind of bad, and we were both tired, so we walked around a little bit, but we didn't go much of anywhere. And our last port of call was when we disembarked in Oslo on Sunday morning. Well, Saturday night, Sunday morning, I started feeling a little rough. And then Sunday during the day, we walked around. We got on a hop-on, hop-off bus, one of those double-decker buses. We walked all the way around Oslo, Norway. And I kept coughing. I had a runny nose, but I didn't really feel that bad. So we stayed the night. Sunday night, we stayed in Oslo, and then we boarded our plane Monday. And by the time I got home, I felt pretty lousy. I didn't sleep much last night. I woke up this morning, and I tested positive for COVID. Now I've got like a little bit of a cough in my throat, and I've been, staying away from other people and stuff, but I've got a cough in my throat, and my nose is running a little bit, but I really don't feel bad. I'm just a little tired. But this is my 3rd time with COVID. My wife has had it 4 times, but she didn't get it this time. Or at least she didn't test positive this morning. But we're both going to take another test tonight. Fortunately, I'm retired, so I don't have to worry about going into work with it. And I did ride a bus today to come back and get our car. But I sat in the bus all by myself way in the back. Anyway, I'm going to continue part 3.